Good morning, everyone. My name is Jonathan King, and today I will be going over my implementation plan with you. Uh, to go ahead and start off part one, the Philosopher. So, after reviewing all the articles that we've read throughout this course, as well as the innovator's mindset, one thing that stuck out to me from one of the articles is that we must be master learners, not master teachers. And I saw a picture here with a quote that I felt was important to what we are going to be talking about today. And it says, if you want to be a carpenter, then you apprentice with a master carpenter. If you want to be a learner, then you should be apprenticing with a master learner too. And so I think one of the key points that I got from these past articles and the innovator's mindset is that we must show students how to learn. And so sometimes we show up into the classroom as educators and we expect that our students know how to learn. And that's not always the case. Sometimes we must show them the steps that are necessary to learn in whatever capacity that looks like. The second is we must instill in our students, and I think this is a critical point, that we must instill in our students a love for learning. Because what's going to happen is if we're able to instill this love of learning into our students, they won't only want to learn when they're in the classroom, but they'll step outside school and want to learn at home, reading books, reading articles, watching documentaries. Their love will continue outside of school, and that is what we want as educators. Not for them to just learn here as they're in school, but go outside and experience the world and learn as much as possible. Point number three is connecting to what's being taught in the classroom to students' personal life, and I think that's a key point, is that students learn best when they can kind of connect it to their personal life and they find meaning behind what they are learning. I think sometimes we as educators, and I've failed to do this at times, is we teach our students something and we don't know why we're teaching them it. And I think it's critical that we get them to understand the importance of what they're learning, the application of what they're learning. So there's some form of motivation and understanding of why they are doing what they are doing. And I found that if we as educators can do that for our students, their passion begins to grow in their effort to learn. So moving on, I found this quote in one of the articles and I found it was very important is students who are driven by external rewards, such as grades and trophies, will be far worse than those who are self-directed, motivated by freedom, challenge, and purpose. And like I just previously talked about, is that students should be driven, right, by freedom and the challenge and the purpose to do something instead of just trying to get an A or trying to get a first place trophy. Another thing that stuck out to me was we must make a change in ourselves before we make a change in our students. And one of the articles made this statement, and I found that it's critical because sometimes, we want to see change so quickly amongst our students, but we don't self-reflect and say, well, the change needs to come from us first before we begin to expect the change from our students. And so I think that's a critical component of an innovator's mindset that we need to take into consideration as educators. So moving on, how can we bring an innovator's mindset to our school, workplace, and classroom? And I've thought about this deeply as an educator and being a new teacher entering the educational school system. And the book, Innovator's Mindset, talked about something that I really feel is critical to bringing an innovator's mindset to the workplace, and that is relationships, relationships, relationships. I think it's critical that we not only build relationships with our students, but we're building relationships with other educators on campus. We're building relationships with the administration, that we're building relationships with the community. If we want, right, to bring this innovator's mindset, if we want change to happen amongst these schools, then people need to be able to trust us and believe in the vision that we see. And one of those ways you do that is building trust among the people that you work with. Moving on, I think second is immerse ourselves in the environment where it's going to happen. So, yeah, we may be implementing something, but we need to be immersed in it. See what are the things that need to be tweaked, the changes that need to be made. I think it's critical that we just don't incorporate something and kind of walk away from it. We need to see if it's working for all students or just a few, and what can we do that it helps all students and the tweaks that need to be made. Moving on, we need to remove the barriers that challenge those we serve. And those are our students. Those are the ones we serve in the community, right? We're serving these parents. And so if there are barriers, that are keeping us from assisting our students, or that are keeping our students from completing the things that we want them to do, then we need to remove those barriers and open up the path for success for our students. Moving on, educators need the tools and resources to create a culture of innovation. So we need to provide these tools, I think, to not only our educators, but to the communities, so they fully understand the purpose of what we're doing. And lastly, they need to also feel supported. I think it's critical that they feel supported throughout the process. I've known that during my started teaching at Valhalla that I made mistakes, but throughout the process, I was supported, knowing that, you know what, you're going to fail through the process, but you got to have that growth mindset and understand that failure is part of the process, but you need to get back up and eventually you will get it right. And it's best when you're surrounded by a community, behind an administration, behind a school that supports you and the decisions that you're making for the students. Moving on, where does technology fit? And reading these articles as well as going through the book, I found that we as educators have a plan on how we need to have a plan on how, where, and why we are going to incorporate technology in the classroom. So we cannot just incorporate technology for the sake of incorporating technology. We need to understand why we are doing it and how we are going to do it. And the reason why we do it is to give our students an experience that is going to help them succeed in the class, that's going to be able to support them in the learning process. And that should be our main reason why we do this, not just because it sounds cool or it looks cool, but we need to have a plan on how we're going to do this and who it's going to affect in the classroom, because sometimes when we incorporate things, it doesn't affect all students evenly. It may affect a few in a positive or negative way and the other the same. So we need to be able to have a plan behind why we're doing what we're doing. And the second is the question that must be asked is, what is best for the learner? And that's something we need to take into consideration continuously as we continue with this innovative mindset, is what's best for the learner, because what may be best for one may not be best for the other. And so we need to maybe be able to implement two different plans on how we're going to approach technology in our classes for different students. So these are pivotal things that the articles as well as the Innovator's Mindset book by George talked about, is that we need to have a plan when we're incorporating technology and make sure that we understand how it's going to affect every individual student as we go. So how can organizations support and encourage change? Well, what I've gotten out of it is, number one, we need to empower individuals, empower them to take risk, empower them to not be afraid to fail. And so I think that's a critical component, right, of supporting and encouraging change. The second is create a vision for learning with the community. So get the community involved, create a vision, let them see the vision that you're seeing, right? So they can hop on board and support you through this process of change, because change is not easy, but I believe change is necessary. So creating an environment that fosters a culture of innovation, right? Focusing on strength-based leadership is key. Embracing an open culture and allowing learners' needs to drive our decisions. And so I think that's part of one of the UDL design, right? The Universal Design Learning, is that allowing our learners to have some form of autonomy to decide how they want to learn, how they learn best. And I think that's one of the best ways organizations can support and encourage this change. I think these are critical elements when looking at change, and I'm so glad I was able to read these articles and be a part of this course, because I really, really believe it made me a better educator. And so I want to thank you so much for this opportunity, and I hope you have an outstanding week. Take care.